Hi, thank you so much for tuning in to P2P Relates, where we talk about all things relationships. I'm Pat Renfro, and today I have a guest, Jessica Castleberry. And Jessica, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yes, ma'am. My pleasure.
So I want to just share that Jessica was a suggestion I got from a very dear childhood friend that I'm close to. And she said, because you're doing all these conversations on your channel about relationships, I have a coworker that I think you need to talk to. And you all, at the very least, will have a very, very interesting conversation. And so she said, go for it. If you're interested, let me know. So we've been planning this for months and we are finally here. So it's going to be a fun ride just to see what happens here. Jessica and I talked about what interests you, what might you want to talk about? And she said, it's not about you. And that really struck a chord with me because on this channel, we talk about how important self-development is, how critical it is to like yourself, to know who you are, and to pursue you, your gifts, your talents, not from a selfish standpoint, but from a standpoint that says, I've got to know who I am, because if I don't know who I am, I sure can't get involved with you, because I'm going to be confused. I'm going to go by emotions. I'm going to go by how you make me feel, what you look like. And all those things, once you get married, are extremely irrelevant. We think that they're important. We think we want to wake up every day and be delighted. And in many cases, we can be. But if that is the sole reason that we're together and we're making a forever decision, we're very likely going to experience a lot of difficulty and a lot of challenge. So enough of me, Jessica. I'd love for you to share with them, what was your dating process and what led to you developing the dating process that you came up with? Let's start with that question.
Okay. First off, I'd beaten cancer 4 times. So a large chunk of my life of youth was taken away. So I was 36, 37, and I was on a time clock if I wanted to have children and have a family. So I'd spent a lot of time on myself, first of all, figuring out what I really wanted out of life in general, what my 5-year goal was, my 10-year goal. You need to know those things to know yourself before you expect someone else. How can you expect someone to give you what you want if you don't know what that is? So you need to know exactly what you want. And there's nothing wrong with being specific. That was another thing, was to learn how to be specific. Another thing my mother always told me was, before you date, you should have a list of at least 5, no more than 10, but at least 5 non-negotiables. Things that if this partner does not complete for you, there is no way it's going to work. Yes, because And they can fully be things that you can discuss quickly and figure out quickly to move on and not waste your time or someone else's. For me, children was a number 1 non-negotiable. I wanted to be a mother. I didn't care if I adopted, fostered, had my own. It didn't matter. I'd always known I wanted to be a mom, and that was a part of it. So obviously, if somebody doesn't like kids or doesn't want to ever be a parent, they are no longer a candidate for me. Marriage. I wanted marriage. I grew up with parents who've been married over 40 years. I knew I wanted that life. And so therefore, somebody who never wanted to get married was not a candidate for me. And the reality is, sometimes you come across that hurdle too, where they don't know. They've been married before maybe, and so they think they might want marriage again, but they're not sure. And you need to date for the now. Especially if you're in your 30s or 40s, time's running out. I've beaten cancer 4 times. It's nothing like a reality check. That life could end at any time. So you need to live your life in the now and what is right for you. If you're that type of person that's not your focus, then it doesn't need to be on your non-negotiable list. But you need to have at least 5. She always taught me too, if you have more than 10, you're being too picky. You're never going to find. Prince Charming is a part of a fairy tale for a reason. If you notice in those movies, though, the point is they found the person that's right for them. There is no Mr. Right, but there's a Mr. Right for you or a Mrs. Right for you. And that's what you have to focus on. And that's hard to do sometimes when you have all these friends and family telling you what they think you need or what they think you want. But it's not about everybody else. It's about you. And you have to spend some time alone, some soul searching, and decide for yourself what you absolutely want and what you absolutely need, because what you need is not always what you want. Do we want, do most women want that tall, dark, and handsome, perfect man? Of course. But you know what? If you are so picky about those features, you're going to miss out on a great man. My husband was, half of his teeth were a mess. And for the longest time in my youth, I was like, I'll never date a guy who's got messed up teeth. That was a thing for me. And I got over that really quickly. And I'm glad I did, because my husband, we've been married a year and now he's got beautiful teeth. He's getting them done.
That is so wise to say that, because you're right. The only reason I think you were able to get over it so quickly is because you knew what you wanted and you had established those 5 to 10 things and you were super clear about those things. So that one over there was like, oh. But if you had gone into that kind of like people who refuse to budget, they just take the money and say, oh, I got money and more is going to come in, so I don't want to budget. I don't want to be limited. Well, then you end up buying and buying and buying. And then one day you look up and you're a little short and you wonder how that happened. And that's what happens, I think, when you decided, I want to get married, I want to be with someone, and I want that person to have these qualities. That makes you super clear. And then when something comes up that's like, well, I wouldn't have chose that if I didn't have to, you can just blow that off.
You have to prioritize. And that was something my mom was, when I would talk to my mom sometimes, she was like, I would be like, yeah, but he's got these teeth. And she's like, so there are dentists. You can get that fixed later. Why are you getting hung up on that? I want to know a guy's heart. Is he the type that, okay, so he wants kids, but is he the type of man? My dad used to always say, I don't care how much money he makes. Is he the man, though, who'll go out and get a second job if he has to take care of his family? Is he going to suck it up and go work at McDonald's as he has to pay the bills to take care of his family? That's the type of man you want. Right. It doesn't matter if he makes a ton of money here and there. Can he take care of himself? And is he willing to do what he has to do? Is he willing to get dirty? My dad used to, all the time when I would get in a relationship, at some point, he'd have him come over to the house and help him with a project. And really, he just wanted to see, is this the type of guy who's going to get his hands dirty and get in there to help the family? Whether it's you, whether it's your parents or whatever, that's a package deal when you get married. And so even if you're not on the best terms, when something happens, you come together and you need to know that that's the type of person you are. I have girlfriends who are my age and even older who we have gone out, and it breaks my heart because they're beautiful people. They're wonderful women. But then I have this one girlfriend and we've been out and she's like, oh no, he's 2 inches too short. No, he is not thin enough for me. No, he doesn't work out 4 days a week. And it's like, you're being too picky and you're going to miss your man. You're going to miss out your opportunity. And that's a thing you really have to reality check. But if you start having this massive checklist, he's never going to be able to meet it.
So when I think about it's not about you, I have to stop and say, it's not about you, Pat. It's not about you. Most of the time when people disappoint us or they even hurt us, it's because of whatever's going on with them. I have all these ways that I can, imagine this, live my own life. So I can't live it for you. I've got to do what I believe is correct and appropriate and right for my life. And am I going to make some mistakes? Yes. And am I going to do something that you wouldn't agree with? Absolutely. And are you going to do some things that let me down? Absolutely. And so with confidence, you've got to push through and maybe in some cases push away from people who have decided that they can decide your path. So I'm going to shut up and let you tell your own story.
My first diagnosis was in 2011, and I spent till today fighting cancer.
What type of cancer? You mind telling?
No, it's fine. I've had 3 different kinds. The first was Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a blood cancer. I finally beat that in 2013. And then in 2015, I was diagnosed with uterine cancer. And then in 2016, I was diagnosed with kidney cancer the first time. I beat the uterine cancer in 2016 and then beat the kidney cancer in 2017. And then while I was pregnant with my son, I re-had kidney cancer. So I just recently had surgery for kidney cancer and had it removed. Now we're dealing with the repercussions. They had to go in through my back and my hip. And so there's some issues going on there because I also have herniated discs. So we're working physical therapy and tests and trying to figure out what the problem is now. But as of right now, I'm 100% cancer free from all 3 cancers. So that's amazing. But it does mean that over 10 years, I have spent worrying about life and death. I've had a will since I was 29. I've had a power of attorney since I was 29, which most 20-year-olds don't have. So it's definitely, from the very beginning, changed my outlook on life. And for a long time, that focus was survival. I'm just trying to make it to the next month, to the next year, trying to keep, and a lot of people assume that once you beat cancer, the battle's over, and it's not. You have so many problems. My teeth have fallen out and the dentist can't stop it or figure out why. They say it's an after effect of chemo. I've had literally over 24 surgeries in the last 10 years. So that clearly has an effect on your credit report and everything else. Trying to maintain a job, which I've been blessed to have a wonderful union to protect me. But no, so many people that didn't have that. And obviously your love life takes a huge hit. I mean, it's impossible to date and be like, so by the way, I have cancer and I'm going to cancel a lot of dates. If I run to the bathroom, I'm just getting sick. Don't worry. I don't have any problems. Don't worry, it's not contagious. I'm going to look pale and have issues anytime we go do anything. I'm going to be tired all the time. How do you start a real relationship with someone at the worst time of your life? It's really hard to impossible to do, especially in your 20s, because other 20-year-olds, if you're dating your same age, are wanting to go out. They want to go clubbing. They want to go experience life and go on trips. And you're like, I can't go anywhere. I have to see my doctors every week. And I have to be close enough to my home. And, oh, well, that's not, clean enough for me to go to or whatever. So dating was pretty impossible for many years and many chunks of time. And so obviously building a relationship. And there were times where I would meet one and start seeing someone. And then as soon as I would get diagnosed with something else, that's a lot to put on somebody. Coming from that perspective, I spent a very long time just thinking about survival and what I really needed and wanted out of life. And so when it came time for me to seriously date, I had people giving me their 2 cents about what I should be doing, about how I should be going about it. And you have to kind of wake them up that it's different for you. Coming from that perspective, it's a very different way to date. When you've had death stare you in the face that many times, you can't date thinking, 20 years from now, 30 years from now. No, I'm thinking the next year, the next 2 years. Is this the type of person that I can build a life with? Is this the type of person who's going to stand by me? Because all 3 of my cancers could come back at any time. My husband, before we even went on our first date, we had a lot of conversations. And I think it was maybe our second date was when I finally told him about my medical history. I used to have so many people who were like, why do you tell them so soon? Don't tell them. Hold it in. And I'm like,
and waste your time.
I have to burst that bubble at some point.
Yeah.
And that's what's right for me. And that's the other thing, going through all of my cancers, besides of a reality check of how fragile life is, it was also a reality check of that I'm the type of person, I like a straightforward, to the point. I don't have time for the games and a lot of tiptoeing. So by the first and second date, I had told my husband, I was like, look, any of these cancers could come back at any time. So you need to know I'm a fighter. I'm not giving up. I will fight it. I will beat it again. But you need to be aware that that may be part of our journey. And there were times where I would be dating someone and he's like, I just can't. And peace out. And I don't blame him. My friends would get very defensive about it and be like, how could he do that to you? But that's a lot to put on somebody at the beginning of a relationship. If you've been together a long time, then sure, by all means, we've got that love, we've got that strength. Let's try to do this together. You have to respect that they're thinking for themselves that this is more than I can handle. And I respected them for making that decision and saving us both a lot of heartache and time. And I had so many people tell me, they're like, you're scaring men off, you're running them off. And my father was the one who was like, I think you're doing it right. You have a lot going on. You have been through a lot, and the right man will stand there and be like, okay, I'm not scared. Exactly. Bring it on. And so it was very clear to me that I had to pursue what I wanted in my way. I couldn't do it the way other people wanted me to, or the way other people thought was best.
That you should.
Yeah. And there's not necessarily saying that the way they thought was wrong. It just wasn't right for me.
Right.
And I tell people all the time, because I get a lot of women, especially, who will come up to me and be like, how'd you do it? Your husband is so great. And you guys are so great together. How did you do it? Dating is so much more complicated and difficult than it used to be. Even my parents, like, there have been times my mother is just, I will read her some of the messages I've received and the disgusting things that have been said to me. And they're just like, oh my God, I could not do it. I don't know how you do it.
But you're a fighter from the core, because anybody who's had 4 different cancers and you're still vibrant and fighting and determined.
It really makes you aware, though, that I think that's kind of how it's gotten. And in dating, it's become the same way, because there are so many options now. It's not like it used to be where you only had the communication of your surrounding areas. There are so many options out there for people. And so you have to be aware that you are competing not only against the girl that he met last weekend, but you're competing against all these other people out there in the world that he could be communicating with, because he can do it from his cell phone now, or they can do it from their cell phone. They can connect with so many people. And so that was the other reason I got very blunt, because I was like, look, I don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste my time. Life's short. So here are some basics I'm looking for, and let's move on. And so a lot of people had a problem with that, but at the same time, I have a friend who's still not speaking to me. And that was one of the last conversations we had. She was like, I didn't agree with how you went about things. Okay, that's fine, but it's not about you. I didn't agree with how you went about things, but look at you. You're happy and healthy, and that's what matters. It didn't stop me from being your friend. It didn't stop me from supporting you, even if I didn't support your decision. And I would like the same respect. That's all I'm asking for. And I've told many women who come to me, the way I went about things worked for me. That's not necessarily going to work for you. And that's okay too. But I just knew from my standpoint, I was tired of the dating game. I went on over 200 first dates in less than a year.
Wow.
It was exhausting.
And how did you meet these people? Was it all online?
Not all of it. Dating websites, friends, until I found the right one. I was going to keep dating. And the reality was, I would have guys sometimes would be on a first date and they would be like, well, what are you doing tomorrow night? And I was like, well, it depends on how tonight goes. A different date set up the next night. But if that date went really well, I was more than happy to cancel another first date. But I would schedule myself. I had an objective. I had a journey. I knew what I was looking for, and I wasn't going to give up till I found it. It is true. You have to spend as much time as you would looking for a job as looking for a mate, because the reality is when you sit down and you think about it, how much time on a weekly basis you spend with your job, getting to your job, coming home from your job, prepping for your job. You spend half your life doing that. And the other half of your life you spend with your significant other. So why is it that we naturally will spend so much time going to college and taking courses or interviews and prepping and working on resumes and so much prep work to get this perfect job that we fight for, but then we don't do the same when we look for a mate? I can't count how many times I've had women who are just like, oh my God, you spent so much time. I don't have that kind of time. If you don't have the time, how are you going to have a marriage? Because I guarantee you a marriage is a lot of work.
It sure is.
My parents would tell me they'd been married over 40 something years. And my mom would tell me all the time, it's a job. It's a job you want. It's a job you want to do. And you love 90% of it. Because there are times that are hard and you are not loving it, but that's what gets you to the good times. And she was like, but you need to treat your marriage as work, because it is. It will always be work. It's a relationship. Neither of you are perfect. Neither of you are always going to have the right answer. So why do we spend so much effort to get a job and make that perfect, but then we don't do the same in a relationship? And so I did. I treated finding my husband like a job. I would get home from work and I would spend multiple hours online responding to messages, having conversations with somebody. Even with online, you have to be very careful with how you date. I never once had a man ever come over to my home that I didn't know. First dates are always in public. You know, you need to do your research and date the right way. And it also sets a tone. I've had friends for years tease me. I'm a bit of a good girl. I don't move fast physically in relationships, because in my mind, you got to get through my checklist first. Otherwise, we're never even going to make it to a second date. So why are we even talking about that yet? Let's have a first date in a nice public place where I feel safe and comfortable. For a very long time, I was a very plus size woman. I never had a problem finding a date. I had a problem finding a husband. But I have girlfriends who look like Malibu Barbie, and they have problems finding a husband. It does not matter.
Why do you think that is?
What, that's hard to find a husband? I think a lot of times is, I don't know as much from men. I've spoken more with women. But to me, a very big problem is women don't know what they want. They think they do, but they haven't sat down and really analyzed it. And all the time we'll be like, he's not giving me what I want. Okay, what do you want? Well, that's not an answer. You cannot expect someone to give you what you want if you cannot specifically say what that is. How can you expect a man to give you what you want if you can't even tell it?
We used to say that same thing for money. If you want money, are you hoping that one day you'll marry a rich person, or you'll run into some money, or somebody will give you money or whatever? And somebody says, well, how much do you need? Well, you know, whatever you can give me would be great. No, if you don't know what your bills are, what your budget is, and what your dollar amount, you might miss that blessing. We need to know in all parts of our lives what it is we want. I'm going to segue to the last question I have for you. Now that you went through all of that and you dated 200 people and then you found the right one and you all got married, how is it?
Wonderful. I married my best friend. It was totally worth it. Everybody says your first year of marriage is the hardest. Our 1-year anniversary is next month. And in our first year of marriage, we got pregnant with a miracle child. We were both told for over 10 years we never have children. And my beautiful son happened. We both got COVID with our son and beat it. I got cancer again and beat it. We've been on lockdown. So you're stuck indoors for sometimes. I was on maternity leave for 4 months. So for months and days on end, stuck with each other, and came through it with flying colors. Even my own parents were like, you guys haven't fought very much. I'm like, no, because, and that was something we discussed before we got married, communication style. I made sure before we got married, we discussed what our communication style was. That was one of my non-negotiables. I needed a man who could communicate with me and talk with me. We were both very aware. We've made comments multiple times that we wish we'd found each other sooner, but at the same time, we've discussed we wouldn't have been the same people. I truly believe we were brought together at the right time. obviously my son is the proof of that. First year of marriage is super hard. Our first year of marriage was beyond difficult, and we came through it with flying colors. I love my husband even more than I did the day I married him. And I'm not going to say every day is perfect. That's a lie.
You'd be lying. Yeah.
We've had our moments. There have been moments where I'm repeating to myself, I love my husband. I love my husband. I love my husband. But my mother always said that a marriage is never 50-50. People who say that haven't really been married. It's, most of the time, it's 70-30, 80-20. It just rotates who's on which side. And my mother asks me all the time, how's the rotation? And I'm like, it's good. We're good. We had a tiff the other day, but then the next day he did this and he made up for it and he apologized or whatever. Our communication style works really well. You know, we discuss things as simple as chores before we got married. Whose chores were going to be whose, where we dropped the ball and who needs to pick it up. And so it's made our first year of marriage fairly simple. I was in labor for 8 days, 8 days. And that is unheard of. And we spent all 8 days of those together 24/7 and having some serious discussions in case we had to make some decisions. And, you know, it was so clear to me that prep work before we got married was so important because it made those days go so easy. The doctor would come in and tell us something and she's like, I'll give you some time with your husband. 5 minutes later, we're calling the doctor back. This is what we've decided. Because we had already discussed a lot of things. We'd already prepped ourselves. We knew, okay, did you hear where she said this and this? Yep. And I heard this and this. Yep. Okay, great. That's where we stand on it. Let's move on. You know, we fit each other very, very well. It made all the work totally worth it. The right man will stand there and be like, okay, I'm not scared. It was very clear to me that I had to pursue what I wanted in my way. I couldn't do it the way other people wanted me to, or the way other people thought was best.
That you should. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's not necessarily saying that the way they thought was wrong. It just wasn't right for me. I have a friend who's still not speaking to me. And that was one of the last conversations we had. She was like, I didn't agree with how you went about things. Okay, that's fine. But it's not about you. I didn't agree with how you went about things. But look at you. You're happy and healthy. And that's what matters. It didn't stop me from being your friend. It didn't stop me from supporting you, even if I didn't support your decision. And I would like the same respect. That's all I'm asking for. But like I said, I got the result I wanted. And even with my friends who aren't speaking to me, we got into a tiff about it. And she's still saying how she doesn't agree with how I went about things.
It's not relevant. I know it's hurtful, but it's not relevant because it's your life. Jessica, what's the probability that you could pull him and baby in right now? Just so as we end this, we can see the family. So I wanted to meet the family because it was just so nice hearing the story about how you all met. So it's a real treat. Thank you so much, Jessica. This was, he is adorable.
Oh, yeah, my hair is down. Huh? He doesn't usually get my hair down. It's almost always in ponytail.
Oh, so it might be in danger, huh?
Yeah,
Got to pull it over to the side like me. So introduce your family to me.
This is my husband, Randall.
Hi, Randall.
And this is my beautiful miracle baby son, Jameson.
Oh, so nice to meet you. Well, I'm going to close off with this. So thank you so much for tuning in to P2P Relates, where we talked about all things relationship today. Jessica, thank you so much for availing yourself. You all give me a thumbs up if you like it. Share it with your friends. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification so that when I post every Friday, you'll get that notification and you can hear more interesting stories like this. And Jessica, I'm going to have you back so we can talk about other parts too. Thank you so much. Bye.